Now, what is the chair? What is the throne? And what are the surroundings of the greatest throne? Don't ask me. Don't ask me what the chair, the throne, and the surroundings of the throne are. The Imam didn't explain it, and I have no knowledge of it. But this is what he said. He said 7 heavens. The chair, the greatest throne, and the surroundings of the greatest throne. So they are 10 in total. 7 and 3. 7 and 3. Total is 10. Alhamdulillah. Now we get back here to the verse. We get back to the verse of Al-Hajj. What did the verse say? Now I'm just going to read this part here, which is, by the way, this is a bit mistranslated. It says, whose folk are not present at the inviolable place of worship, while the Arabic one says, whose folk, or whose folk, yes, are not present at Al-Masjid Al-Haram. Al-Masjid Al-Haram. Now, Al-Masjid Al-Haram, the Imam alayhi salam says that whose folk are not present at the Masjid Al-Haram, meaning that he's not from Ahlul Bayt. His folk are not from Ahlul Bayt. He's on his own. Just like Salman al-Farisi. Just like Salman al-Farisi. The Imam says in another volume of Mutashabihat, after I'm done with this question, I will move to that question, because they're connected. He says about these 7 and 10, these 7 plus 3. He talks about it in a different position. I will get to that inshallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, whoever cannot find such gifts, then he must fast 3 days. He must fast 3 days in the pilgrimage and 7 when he has returned. 3 days and 7. That is 10 in all. That is 10 in all. That is for whose folk were not present at the inviolable place of worship, or in the Masjid al-Haram, the house of God subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now the Imam says, he says that those 3, the 3 days, the 3 days which you have to fast in the pilgrimage, and when he says pilgrimage, he puts it in hash in between 2 dashes, like this. Between 2 dashes. He says, after the pilgrimage, he puts 2 dashes and he says, meaning the house of Allah. So he defines the pilgrimage as the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he says, those 3 are, what are they? What are those 3 days? They are the chair, the greatest throne, and the surroundings of the greatest throne. Those are the 3. The chair, the greatest throne, and the surroundings of the greatest throne. As to the 7 which if you return, they are the 7 heavens. And this earth is included in the lowest sky. Now they're the 7 skies. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created 7 skies. I don't know if the correct word to refer to it in English would be 7 skies or 7 heavens. But they are Allah's creation of 7 skies or 7 heavens. I'm referring to it as 7 heavens. Perhaps if I say 7 skies, you will be more familiar with the verses of the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says He created the 7 skies. This is what the Imam is talking about. He's talking about these 7. Now I refer to them as the 7 heavens. So the Imam ﷺ says that the 3 which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about in the house of Allah are the chair, the greatest throne, and the surroundings of the greatest throne. The 7 if you return are the 7 heavens. Now this inshallah it will be clarified now. All of this complication comes in this next paragraph. The explanation is all in this paragraph. So focus guys. The Imam says, fasting here from the ego or from your desires, fasting is from your desires. And it's from your ego. That fasting is at 10 levels. 10 levels. Like somebody could fast in level 1. For example, when I fast from my ego, and when I fast I don't mean food and drink. When I fast I don't mean food and drink. I mean fasting from what? From all that you want. And residing only to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. That fasting is at 10 different levels. So I could, for example, fast from my ego, even if I'm eating. Even if I'm eating and drinking, I could be fasting. The true fasting is not about food. The true fasting is something you perform even when you're eating or drinking. Even when you're, whatever it is that you're doing. Even at your job, you're going to work every day, you are fasting while you're doing that. We will explain later the Qarnayn in the second question in Mutashabihat. The Imam said what the true fasting is. That is a different question. We will get to it later. I don't want to get them mixed up. So the Imam says, he's saying that fasting is from your desires. Simply to say now, for now, fasting is from your desires. And he says that this fasting is at 10 different stages, 10 different levels. So for example, I could fast until level 1, for example. And somebody else, a better person, would fast until level 5. So I could, for example, have crossed 5 heavens, while somebody else crossed 5 heavens, and 2 more heavens, meaning 7, and the chair and the throne and the surroundings of the throne. So he completed the 10 levels. He completed the 10 stages, while you, on the other hand, could perhaps only reach 1 stage. You could reach 2 stages. You could reach 10. Whatever you want. It's your choice. Your choice how much you want to fast. Your choice what level you want to reach. Now complete the 10, you will be from Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Complete the 10, you will be like Salman al-Farisi, from Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Even if your parents are not from Ahlul Bayt. You see, you are not the son of an Imam. You are not the son of an Imam. And you are not an Imam. And Salman al-Farisi, his parents were not Imams. And he was not an Imam. But he completed this. He completed the 10 levels. So what did he become? He became from Ahlul Bayt. What does Muhammad say? Salman is from us, Ahlul Bayt. He's one of us. Why? Because he completed these 10 levels. Salman al-Muhammadi, exactly. Now he is called Salman al-Muhammadi. He completed the 10 levels, so he became from Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Salman al-Muhammadi, yes, inshallah, I'll change that. Salman al-Muhammadi and not Salman al-Farisi. He was able to reach that, even though his folk were not present at the inviolable house of Allah. Now do we understand what his folk is talking about? Salman al-Muhammadi, he reached that level even though his folk were not present at the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning, even though his parents are not from Ahlul Bayt, even though he is not an Imam, son of an Imam, but he reached it. So when Allah says those 3 and after them 7, when Allah says that subhanahu wa ta'ala, he means that, and then he says for whose folk are not from the people of al-Masjid al-Haram, meaning that he fasts these 10 days so that he can be as if he was from the people of al-Masjid al-Haram, even though his parents aren't. So that is like Salman al-Muhammadi, that he became like from Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. He became from Ahlul Bayt, even though his parents are not from Ahlul Bayt. And even though he is not the son of an Imam, and he is not an Imam, but he became from Ahlul Bayt. Why? Because he completed those 10 different levels. He completed the 3 stages, and after them, 7 stages. He completed them, so he became from Ahlul Bayt. It's not that fast is for every minute. It's a constant struggle, exactly. There is not a single minute more where you're not tested. There is not a single millisecond going by where you are spared from the test. You're tested in every breath you take. You are tested in every breath you take. So there are no specific days to do this, or whenever you want. It's a constant struggle. In constant fasting from your ego. Constant, every minute, not only Ramadan. You see, Ramadan basically, let me put it in this metaphor. Ramadan is like summer camp. It's like summer camp. Allah made it compulsory for you to train. That's what it is. It's basically summer camp. Allah in this month made it compulsory for you to do this. And He didn't make it compulsory for you to deny your ego and to He just made it compulsory for you to not eat or drink. That's all He did. He just took away the food and the water. So it's basically it's a training. It's a training. Basically, yes, it's a training. It's a training program so that you'll be more accustomed to it. It's fasting every day from your ego calling, exactly. In Ramadan, it is just a materialistic example so that you will get an understanding what this is all about. Which is a great blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That He has given us the month of Ramadan. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ala Mahdiina wa sallam tasliman kathira. Okay. So, Imam alayhi salam continues and he says that fasting is 10 different levels. Fasting is 10 different levels. Now, I add to it I add to it that so Imam alayhi salam said that fasting is at 10 different levels. Now I'm gonna add to it and tell you guys that what does the level mean? How is it a level? Now you see, you know God by a certain level. Is that correct? Like when you how do you say? Imagine that you've got like a plate, and that plate has, for example, coal in it, coal or something black, something bad. Let's say coal. You have a plate, like a round little plate, and it has coal in it, and God has food. He wants to give you food. He wants to give you food, but your plate already has so much coal in it. Remove the coal, and God will put food in that place which you have emptied. If you remove one piece, 1 centimeter square is free. Allah will give you 1 centimeter square of food. Remove more, Allah will give you more. Is that example clear? Like you remove the darkness from your plate, you remove what's already filling your plate, and Allah will give you the food in it. Keep your darkness there, keep the coal there, you will not receive any food. Empty your plate completely, wipe it clean, and put it in the dishwasher for 7,000 hours, and you will get the best kind of food. All food of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is amazing, but you will get like 100% food. So what you have now is that you have this existence of yours. It has darkness. This existence of yours, it has darkness. It has ego. Call it darkness, call it ego, call it desires, call it shaitan, call it whatever you want to call it. It's the same thing. Whatever, it's the opposite of God. It's the darkness. It's everything coming from Satan. Darkness, ego, desires. However you refer to it, it is that negative thing which you're supposed to demolish. Remove that from your heart, remove that from your soul, and God will give you His knowledge, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Remove that, take that away, and God will give you His knowledge. Now, you could remove it by a level of 10%. You could remove it by a level of 10%. If you remove it by a level of 10%, for example, we will say you reached the first stage. Remove it by a level of 100%, we can say that you reached the 10th stage. Now, Ahlul Bayt, they have the 10 stages. Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, they have the 10 stages removed. Of course, not all of them at the same level. Like, there are different levels. Now, when you have, for example, 50% food in your plate, when you have, for example, 50% knowledge, you will worship God by this 50%. You will worship God by how much you know Him, by how much knowledge you already have. You will worship God by how much knowledge you have. You will use this knowledge, this 50%, to worship God subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you could worship God by a level of 50%, while somebody else could worship Him by a level of 70%. So even the worshipping varies by how much you know God. You could know God by this level, and that level is how much you know Him, and that's how much you worship Him. That's that's the level of your worshipping. The level of your knowledge is the level of your worshipping. You worship God by what you know about God.